Thank you for tuning in to 25 Days of Christmas Comics. I am your host, the Dude Without Fear, and this is day 15 of our 25-day event. If you are a subscriber, I appreciate you. This is your first time watching, welcome to the channel. If you like this content, give me that thumbs up to help me get pushed around on YouTube. And if you want to see more stuff like this and you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Become a member of the crew without fear. Tonight's Christmas comic is real weird. It is easily the weirdest comic that is being featured on our series. And I actually debated whether or not to even use it because it's just really weird. So get ready for Batman and the Outsiders number 8. This story is called The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. And on our intro page, we have the Phantom Stranger who is watching as Batman and the Outsiders are attacked by babies. Told you, real weird. The Phantom Stranger says, Christmas, a time revered in song and story as the dawning of new light over a dim and weary world. But for every yin there is a yang, and every ray of light has its counterpart in shade and sorrow. Men call me the Phantom Stranger, and I am the guardian of that light. And on a day that celebrates the coming of a Savior babe, I should despair were that light snuffed out by the cold wind of darkness. And this story is, of course, by Mike W. Barr and Jim Aparo, who co-created Batman and the Outsiders together. So our story begins Christmas time in Gotham. It is actually not Christmas Eve yet. It's actually, I believe, December 23rd. So that in itself sets this comic apart from most of the others. But there is a man and his very pregnant wife walking down the streets of Gotham with a bunch of Christmas gifts. The wife tells her husband, honey, I can take one or two more of those presents. And he's like, no, babe, you've got enough carrying our child around. And they argue about if it's a boy or a girl or not. And so, they get to their car and they drive home. When they get home, they see police cars at their next door neighbor's house. So they run over there and they're like, officers, we live next door. We're her friend. What's going on? Is she okay? And as they're talking to the police officer, the owner of the home says, Carol, is that you? They've taken Timmy. They've taken my baby. And, the cops let him in. And he's like, what happened? The husband's like, what happened here? And a Lieutenant Freeman of the Gotham Police says, that's what we're trying to figure out. And he introduces himself and points to Batman behind him and essentially tells them that their neighbor was getting her son ready for his bath when all of a sudden somebody just knocks her out. And when she came to, her baby was gone. And everything was just knocked over and destroyed. So she had locked all of her doors from the inside. So they assumed that the kidnapper knew the house. And he asks the husband, have you noticed anyone suspicious around this house lately? And he says, no, not that I can recall. And the woman, goes to Lieutenant Freeman and she's sobbing and she's just like, please, please find him. He's all I have ever since his father passed away. And the lieutenant says, we'll do our best, ma'am. Don't worry. And the woman asks Batman what he's doing there because he only cares about muggers and killers. And Batman says, and criminals who try to destroy families, Miss Whitfield. Lieutenant Freeman speaks for me. I'll do my best. And Batman exits in a manner only Batman could. And the pregnant lady takes her neighbor over to their house and says that she's staying with them. And so we skip ahead a little bit. Batman is at the Gotham PD. And Lieutenant Freeman's talking to him and he says, one of our patrolmen found him on the street, Batman. Not drunk, but nearly catatonic. They ran his prints through the computer and they match the Whitfield kidnapper. And Batman sees this old man laying on a table and he's like, this old man? He can barely walk. And I wonder if they actually meant talk because he's got a word bubble and he's just like, bleh, bleh. So they may mean talk, but Lieutenant Freeman says, I know, I can't make a lick of sense out of it. Batman says, you thought I could, eh, Freeman? Batman exits through the window and says, thanks for the compliment, or are you just trying to lighten your workload? And as Batman's swinging through the city, he's thinking to himself that there is an explanation, but discards it. And he's like, because that wouldn't be possible. Then all of a sudden, on a rooftop that Batman's swinging by, the Phantom Stranger appears, and he tells Batman to follow his instincts. They may lead him to the truth when reason fails. And Batman's like, what are you doing here? And then he is gone as quickly as he came. But Batman thinks, maybe I didn't see him, maybe I did, but it won't hurt to follow that hunch. So Batman goes back to Gotham PD, and he's thinking, he's in the file room, and he's thinking, don't know what the stranger's stake in all this is, but it'll take just a moment to compare the kidnapper's prints with the prints at Timmy Whitfield's birth. And Batman compares the two, and they are the same. And he declares that old man is Timmy Whitfield. And he's thinking something weird is going on here. So then our story takes us to Happy Time Nursery School. Lieutenant Freeman and Batman are interviewing Mrs. Hopkins, who called them. Lieutenant Freeman asked her to tell them what's going on. And she says, we had just finished lunch, and I was tucking the children in for their afternoon naps. It was difficult to calm them down. They were so excited about Christmas. But I managed. And then, when I was leaving, and she hears a scream, and she turns around. Says, no child I'd ever known had ever screamed like that. And when I turned, I saw they weren't children. Not anymore. And the children that were laying in the bed are now these really old, decrepit people. And so the woman, Miss Hopkins, is sobbing into her hands, and she's just like, how will I ever tell their parents? Lieutenant Freeman tells her that he'll do that she just needs to rest, and whatever happened here wasn't her fault. So Batman and Lieutenant Freeman are walking out, and he's like, I hope you have some leads on whose fault it is, Batman, because I sure don't. Batman says, I'm not sure, Freeman, but I'm working on. And then all of a sudden, Batman has been transported to some spiritual plane by the Phantom Stranger. And Batman's like, where are we? And Stranger says, our location is unimportant, Batman. It is the fate of those children that concerns us. Batman says, yes, first one child was made old, then 20. There's a good chance whatever's doing this will strike at Gotham's Children's Hospital next. Hundreds of children are patients there. Stranger says, your logic points there, Batman, as do all my instincts. We will be there tomorrow, which is Christmas Day. And then Batman comes back out of the spiritual plane, and Freeman's like, Batman, are you listening to me? He's like, yes, Freeman, I'll see you later. And then Batman's walking out, and he says, I wonder if my appearances and disappearances shake people up like that. He grins, he thinks to himself, I hope so. Christmas morning, and while millions of families are drawn together by the bonds of love, the outsiders struggle against the heavy chains of depression. And then the outsiders in civilian clothes show up to the Children's Hospital carrying a ton of Christmas presents. And Katana says, Mrs. Douglas, we're from the Wayne Foundation. And Mrs. Douglas says, oh yes, it's so kind of you to do this, Mrs. Yamashiro. Your visit will make the children feel so much better. And I believe that's Geoforce that says, it may be us too. That's not Geoforce. Who is that? It must be Rex Mason in disguise. Because Geoforce is outside flying around the city on Batman's orders, keeping an eye out. And all of a sudden, he hears somebody yelling for help. And he looks down, and it's the man and his pregnant wife from the beginning of her story. They're in their car, trapped in what looks to be like a blizzard on the road. And they can't, she's in labor, and they're trying to get to the hospital. And so he asks Geoforce if he could fly them there. So he's like, get in the car, buckle up, and he flies the car to the hospital. It happens thousands of times a day across the world, but especially on this day, that makes it no less a miracle. The woman is in labor, and the doctor says, one more deep breath and push, Carol, that should, and then the baby comes out. He's holding the baby upside down by its feet. Says, congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Dennison, you're the parents of an 8-pound baby. What? And we see this baby with these crazy demon eyes and these clenched fists, and it's telepathically speaking to the doctor. It says, you will not touch me, doctor, much less strike me unless I wish you to. And he zaps the doctor, and the doctor lets go of the baby, but the baby's still there. And the baby telepathically says, and with distractions over, I may assume a more comfortable form. And he turns into this fully grown magician looking dude dressed in a white magician suit and a cape. He says, my rightful form, Tanarak. And the woman who just gave birth to this dude is screaming, no, what have you done to my baby? And he says, I will thank you for providing such a powerful body for me to possess, woman, by ending your life quickly. And he's about to zap her. And Phantom Stranger says, I think not, Tanarak, for these innocents do not stand alone against you. And he's like, Phantom Stranger, I was hoping our paths would cross so I could repay the kindness you showed me at our last meeting. So the woman that welcomed the outsiders in comes back and tells them, hey, visiting hours are over, we need everybody to leave. And they're like, those are really short visiting hours, especially on Christmas. Something's up. So they all rush down the hallway, and some dude joins them, some doctor, and they're like, hey, you going somewhere, fella? And he pulls off his mask, and it's Batman. And he's like, with you, Metamorpho, And they were like, hey, we were wondering when you would show up. So they get there, and Phantom Stranger is fighting Tanarak, and they're talking about their last meeting. And their last meeting, apparently, Phantom Stranger thought that he had killed Tanarak because he had zapped him with his power. And it started to rapidly de-age him, and he went from being a grown man to a child to a toddler to a baby to just disappearing. And Phantom Stranger thought that he died, but he actually just kind of reverted to like a spirit, like a soul, and he went flying about looking for somebody to possess. He said that he wandered aimlessly for months until he found that he needed more. Adults could resist his weakened influence, but children were perfect victims. Then it shows him possessing the kid at the beginning of the story that went missing, changing the body to where it's an adult male and just waylaying that woman. And then Phantom Stranger says, and you continued to sap the essence of children, leaving them dried and aged husks, until you had amassed the power to modify a body as you chose. And Tanarak says, yes, and the catch, old chum, is that to defeat me, you'll have to destroy the innocent form I inhabit as well. And I don't think you'll do that, stranger. But as usual, I have no such maudlin restraints about your safety or anyone else's, and while you're so nobly protecting them, I can destroy you. And so the outsiders come in and they're trying to help Phantom Stranger, and Tanarak shoots a blast, and that blast goes into the nursery ward, and it possesses all the babies that are in there, and the babies crawl out, and everybody's freaking out because these babies are just crawling out in like a formation. And then they come in the room where they're fighting, the delivery room, and Batman's like, what in the... And these babies are like on Batman's legs and like trying to get at Batman. And he's like, good God. And the outsiders are like, how can we fight this? And he's like, use your powers defensively, Geoforce, hold them back, but don't hurt them. And they're all freaking out, because how do you fight babies, dude? They're afraid they're going to kill them or hurt them. And like, talk about a crazy villain. Freaking babies, man. So Katana distracts him with like her sword, like making it shimmer and shine in the light. And Metamorpho builds a pin, makes a pin makes himself into a pin, a cage, and cages up a bunch of babies, and Geoforce like puts them in like an air bubble or whatever, and Halo traps them in like a tractor beam. And so they protect all the babies. They got all the babies safe. And Tanarak and Phantom Stranger are still fighting. And Tanarak says, surrender, old chum. You dare not harm this body, nor any of the others I'll need throughout my eternal life. Phantom Stranger says, you would seize the lives of others as well. My soul may be damned for this, Tanarak, but if the body you inhabit must die so billions may be spared, so be it. And Phantom Stranger just like rains hellfire down on him. And Tanarak's like, stranger, no. And he's sucking out all that life form, all that life essence from him. And Carol, the woman that just gave birth to this dude, she's screaming, no, he's still my baby. And it says, as Tanarak dies for perhaps the final time, his plundered life essence returns to its rightful owners who gladly welcome it. And so all these old people who were just in the hospital or at GCPD, that their life essence returns to them, and they revert back to how they are supposed to be, children and babies. And Phantom Stranger is talking to Batman, and he says, "It's finished. I only wish there had been some other way to." And then the doctor says, "Everybody out. I don't know how, but this woman's going to have another baby." And so everybody gets out, and then they hear, after a while, they hear a baby crying, and Batman and Phantom Stranger are smiling. The doctor comes out into the waiting room where they are, and he says, "An 8-pound baby boy, an exact twin of the other one, but I would have bet my practice she was only carrying one child." Phantom Stranger says, "Perhaps she was, Doctor, and perhaps on this day of all days, a higher good deemed it wise to balance the scales. This has ended better than I dare dream, but I must go. None shall remember what transpired here this day, none save us. You outsiders have served the cause of right this day, and is that not itself a cause for rejoicing?" Metamorpho says, "You know he's right. Despite our own problems, we were able to help save all these kids, and the Dennison baby too. And if there's a better Christmas present, I don't know it." And our story ends with a quote from Harry Reasoner from Christmas Day, whatever this is. I don't know what this is. And the quote says, "Because the one message of Christmas is the Christmas story. If it is false, we are doomed. If it is true, as it must be, it makes everything in the world all right." And so I can't really explain why I felt like I was supposed to use this story in our series, because, like I said, it's a really weird story. I don't really know of what the moral is to the story, if there is one. I think it's just entertainment. But I think one thing that I really liked about the comic is that on the first page and on the last page, they both acknowledge, the true reason that Christmas exists, which is it's the birth of Jesus. And as a Christian, that really appealed to me, and because that's not something that you see in modern comics really at all. Like, that's just, that viewpoint's not there. But the story is like, it's kind of ballsy, because like Phantom Stranger was willing to kill Tanarak, who had taken form out of this newborn baby, and he was willing to kill Tanarak, take this baby's life, to save the potential billions of lives that Tanarak was planning on taking so that he could live forever. And so Phantom Stranger made that super tough call to do that. But because he rid the world of that evil, this miracle happened on Christmas Day, where that baby that was lost was replaced with an identical baby just like it. And so the story's about, the miracles of Christmas. Miracles still happen today. We just don't really hear about it a lot. And, Christmas is a time for miracles. Christmas is a time where the things that you're hoping for can come to pass. I just read in the news about a Walmart that had all of its layaways paid off for Christmas, something like $30,000 worth of layaways. And for a lot lot of people, that was a miracle. That was like, holy crap, you know, I didn't know that I was going to be able to afford this at all. And here it is, somebody got it for me, you know. To them, that's a miracle. And so Christmas is the time of miracles. Christmas is a time where miracles become commonplace for that little bit. And so if you need a miracle, if you're believing for a miracle, don't stop believing for it. Keep that hope alive, because Christmas is the time of hope, and it is a time of miracles. And I think that's all I have for tonight's episode. So I really appreciate you watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it. Please leave me a comment. Let me know if you did. I will see you here tomorrow. I hope to see you back here tomorrow. And I hope that you have a wonderful evening. May it be full of peace, love, and joy. Good night.